Today, I'll be taking a look at Gargoyles Darkwing Duck #1 from Dynamite. The crossover probably nobody saw coming, but we'll see if it'll be able to pull it off. The plot is by Tad Stones and Greg Weisman, and is written by Greg Weisman, with art by Ciro Cangelosi. So you have the creator of Darkwing Duck, the creator of Gargoyles, and Ciro Cangelosi, who had experience working on Disney Afternoon comics for Dynamite. So the comic kicks off with Demona saying an enchantment to a large magic mirror, which is also where we get the title for this series. The official Darkwing Duck and Gargoyles Disney Afternoon team-up crossover comic book miniseries event. And then we see the other side of the mirror, where Morgana Macabre and her pets, Eek, Squeak the Bats, and Archie the Spider, are watching her mix potions. When all of a sudden, a shadowy figure calls Morgana's name. And after some back and forth, it becomes clear to Morgana that this shadowy figure is up to no good, and that she wants no part of whatever this figure is planning. So when Morgana refuses, the shadowy figure reaches through the mirror, grabs Morgana, and pulls her and Archie the Spider through, leaving Eek and Squeak behind. And of course, anyone who knows their Gargoyles lore knows that the shadowy figure is Demona, one of the main Gargoyles villains. And then we cut to the First National Bank of St. Canard, where Darkwing Duck is stopping a trio of dogs from robbing the bank, where we get some classic Darkwing Duck banter with the villains before they pull out rocket launchers that shoot pies, which Darkwing Duck calls them amateurs because every St. Canardian knows banana cream is the funniest pie and the only reliable pie munition. After a bit more banter, Darkwing takes care of the thieves. Before then, Eek and Squeak show up. Darkwing then returns back to his Audubon Bay Bridge hideout, where Eek and Squeak have followed him, where we find out that Goslin can actually understand them, which is where it's revealed to Darkwing that Morgana has been kidnapped by a red-haired gargoyle and taken to New York City. So Darkwing and Launchpad head out in the Thunderquack to go find Morgana, with Goslin, Eek, and Squeak supposed to stay behind. We get a bit of classic Darkwing Duck humor when, on their way to New York City, Launchpad and Darkwing are talking about what nickname St. Canard could have, whether it be the Big Root Beer, the Big Broccoli, and then a voice shouts out the Big Rutabaga, which then alerts Darkwing that Goslin and Eek and Squeak have snuck aboard, which is a classic move in a lot of the original series of Darkwing telling Goslin to stay put and her going anyways. After arriving in New York City, Darkwing ejects out of the Thunderquack with his motorcycle, the Ratcatcher, and drives off, and Goslin sends Squeak to go follow him. We then briefly cut back to Morgana and Demona, where we find out that Demona is looking for some information on an item that Morgana has knowledge of. And when Morgana tries to use her magic, she ends up getting shocked by the magic-proof chains that Demona tied her up with. We jump back to Darkwing and Squeak as they drive through New York City. And then just as quickly, we jump to Goliath and Elisa as they spot the Thunderquack flying through the air and decide to go follow it. We then cut back to Darkwing and Squeak as they end up interrupting a bank robbery. And just as the criminals have turned the tables on Darkwing, Goliath and Elisa show up and quickly defeat the villains. And as Darkwing is explaining what he's doing in New York, he very quickly gets very defensive and very angry when he spots Goliath and demands to know where Morgana is. We do get a bit of a funny part where, after Darkwing calls Goliath a monster for being a gargoyle, Elisa steps in and chastises him for being speciest. He states that, I guess we're headed for a cliched comic book battle between well-meaning heroes. But before Darkwing can attack, the sun comes up and Goliath gets turned to stone, which is what happens to gargoyles in the Gargoyle universe during the daytime. Since they're not going to fight, Darkwing once again restates that a gargoyle kidnapped his girlfriend, but this time he adds in the detail of of red hair. And that's when Elisa realizes who they're dealing with. There's only one gargoyle that could be. And then we cut back to Morgana and Demona as we finally find out what Demona's after, as she changes into her human form. And that is, she's trying to find the location of the Quackonomicon, which is a very powerful spell book that Morgana owns, that showed up in an episode of the original series, My Valentine Ghoul. And that's where the comic ends. And now for my thoughts. I really enjoyed the comic. It has a very intriguing premise. You have a lot of very classic Darkwing Duck scenarios playing out. Just enough new material so it doesn't feel old or tired. You got a lot of classic Darkwing Duck banter and dialogue that feels very out of the original show. The art is fantastic. You can really tell how much Ciro Cangelosi has gotten accustomed to drawing these characters. Both the Gargoyles and Darkwing Duck characters look like they're straight from the original series, just with a little extra detail. While there is a lot to like, it is not perfect. We have yet another Darkwing comic by Morgana being kidnapped or going missing, which seems to happen a lot in cutting back and forth for like one page and then cutting back to, which really feels like the story had been heavily compressed compared to what it was originally intended as. And while the comic is called Gargoyles Darkwing Duck, it feels more like Darkwing Duck with special guest stars from the Gargoyles. There's also no explanation of how the Darkwing Duck characters and the Gargoyles characters are interacting with each other without any indication of them being from separate universes. With that being said, it's still an entertaining comic, and I am looking forward to issue 2. I do recommend picking it up. Till next time, see ya.